Hello and welcome back to another edition of Chill with Kaiju Kim. I'm Kaiju Kim. Hope you're all doing well on this lovely afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. Why watch the Oscars when you can watch this show, right? Okay. So the 50th anniversary is of Godzilla versus Megalon is upon us. This is one of those movies where everyone either loves it or hates it. And I, for one, absolutely love it. And tonight I will be discussing this wonderful film with the author of such books such as Gilgamo versus Super Allosaurus, which I have a copy of. My husband has the copy. I forgot to ask him for it. I'm super prepared because I'm a professional. Yeah, but he's done a lot of cool stuff, and he's going to talk about this film with me tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Neil Riebe.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Well,
I don't
thanks
know
for
if this
coming
is
on.
officially the second time because I was at your G-Fest show.
Yes, you were. You briefly appeared at the towards the tail end, towards my G Fest wrap up stream. So
Yeah.
people might not know your wonderful face. So for anyone who may not know, why don't you give a quick intro to yourself?
Oh, okay. Well, well, you did mention about my book. You didn't have it, but lucky I have a copy of my new book.
There it is.
you know, Oops,
That's
so
the
that's how I
one.
get straight there. Gilgamesh versus the Super Allosaurus. So yeah, this is my third novel, and I decided to go all out with the monster versus monster battle, as opposed to my previous books that had different themes. And so the catchphrase on this one, I got at the top of the book here is New York City is the arena, the world is the prize. And I got the Statue of Liberty kind of sitting there like a trophy between the two monsters. And so that's what part of my big claim to fame is that I'm an author, so I've published three novels through Amazon, and then I got some short stories out there in different kaiju anthologies, and I also have a few nonfiction articles out there. The one I'm most proud of is my 50th anniversary Spectre-Man article, which showed up in GFan 2 years ago, and right now the current article I'm working on is for Journey to the Beginning of Time, which is a favorite childhood dinosaur movie of mine, and that one's kind of shaping up to be my most ambitious article. Otherwise, I've been a fan of these kind of movies since 1975. So I've been with the fandom for a very long time.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see who we have in the chat tonight. Just a couple of people. We got Michael Hamilton. Hello, good sir. For the children. Yes, quite. And we got Adrian, Godzilla Train 1090. What's going on? Thank you for stopping by, good sir. All right, Neil. So I know you already answered my 3 questions, but just to refresh our memory, why don't you answer them again? Is that cool with you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, I got introduced way back in the March of either late March or early April 1975. I was just getting interested in dinosaurs, and so my mom figured, well, if he likes dinosaurs, then you'll like a Godzilla movie. So the first one I saw was King Kong versus Godzilla, which if my memory serves, I'm pretty sure this is certain. It was on a Sunday afternoon on NBC. As I said, I was like late March or early April 1975. And of course, at that point, I was just absolutely hooked on Godzilla when I saw that movie. And probably one of the big things that really drew me in was just his roar. That was such an unusual roar. I mean, like you hear like other roars from American monster movies and dinosaur movies, and there's like nothing close to that. It was the most epic sound I ever heard. And then, so that's how I got introduced. Then my favorite Godzilla movie, which is like very hard to pick because I like them all. So I go with Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as my favorite because that kind of had maybe had the most best experience with that movie, because that was like one of the holy grail of the Godzilla movies for me, because I've already seen Destroy All Monsters and Monster Zero. So best at the time, we're talking here, in the 1970s when we had very little information. That was like the 3 Ghidorah movies ever made. So like the only Ghidorah movie I hadn't seen was his origin story. And so I was always wanting to see that one. And it kept on eluding me because it always would show up on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m., school night. Sorry, got to go to bed, can't see it. Until finally, I don't know how long it was. It was, to me, at that time, it seemed like for years, but it was probably just months. How time seems like when you're a kid. It finally showed up on a Friday night And it was like I can't remember, maybe 1 in the morning or something like that. And I got up. That see, Friday nights were the only nights that my mom would let me set the alarm to get up to watch those movies. And so I was really just couldn't wait to watch it. And it turned out to be, exceeded my expectations. And in between commercial breaks, I was imitating the monsters, sitting the pillow cushions and on the sofa like rocks and knocking them over like when Rodan rose up and knocked down the side of the volcano. I had my blanket
awesome.
that I used as either wings for Rodan or stuck at the back of my pajamas, used the tail if I wanted to be Godzilla. And so I was commercial breaks kind of role playing the scenes I just watched in the movie. So it was like a one-man party when I saw that film. And especially with the part of the highlight of that movie, of course, is when Godzilla and Rodan had that sudden turn of motivation there and they came on and helped Mothra. It's kind of like validated everything I felt about those two monsters. I loved them. I thought, well, deep down they gotta be good creatures, and here they kind of validated my feelings about them. So that was kind of one of the big high points of watching those movies.
That's awesome. And what would be your favorite non-Godzilla kaiju movie?
Oh boy, that's another tough one. I think, did I say last time was Rodan? Can't remember.
I think you did mention Rodan last time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to be with Rodan. Youngri is very close to toppling Rodan off his throne, but I think I'm going to stick with Rodan.
All right, not bad, not bad. I like Rodan too. That's one of the only non-Godzilla kaiju films I saw as a kid. And it wasn't until I hit adulthood where I saw like, wait, there are other kaiju out there? What? Yeah, it's a good time for everybody. So tonight we are talking about Godzilla versus Megalon, one of my favorite Godzilla movies ever. So back in January, when I previewed a list of topics that I wanted to cover on the show this year, you reached out and expressed your interest in coming on for this one, for Godzilla versus Megalon's 50th anniversary. So what is it about this film that made you want to come on the show tonight?
There's probably like a couple different reasons. First one, and I just adore this movie, just because it's just a pure action film, and there's just something about the whole set of this movie, because there's a bit of world building in this movie. You kind of think about it, because first you got Japan, the contemporary setting. Then you had Seatopia, that kingdom under the ground. And then there's also references to Hunter Space Nebula M, which I can't remember what the full name is, where Gigan came from. And then, of course, you got Monster Island. So you got all these faraway lands. It's almost like think of like Middle Earth, how that has an epic scale because it has all these different territories. And so Godzilla versus Megalon kind of has that in there. And then it also was it caught up with the rest of those superhero type shows like Spectre-Man at that time. Because to me, when I was a little kid, the 70s was kind of like the peak of all like the monster storytelling. So I saw the 50s, the 70s, one big story arc. First you start with Monster on Loose, and then once we kind of establish the world, well, then you can go to other issues, like involving good and evil, social issues like pollution. And so that movie kind of embodied that, because you can do a lot more with it. And then also it falls into the second monster boom, which is my area of study and research, is the second monster boom, which is the same time period that Spectre-Man came out, which is my favorite, what are they called, Henshin, or
Henshin Heroes.
Yeah, Henshin Heroes series.
Awesome. I've never seen Spectre-Man.
You can find them on YouTube.
Probably. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who probably shouldn't, but they did anyway. Put the episodes out there, and though all the English language ones have been remastered, and I don't know why they didn't just go to like the DVD, but instead it went straight to YouTube. I don't know who got a hold of those, but they're out there. I probably shouldn't say anything, because now probably something that's probably going to be a copyright strike against it when get pulled.
Oh well, what can you do?
Well, I didn't do it, so I don't have to worry about getting in trouble. So.
Michael said you wrote a wonderful article on Youngri for Kaiju Ramen magazine. Tell us a little bit about that.
You. Appreciate it. That's actually my second article for Youngri.
Oh, okay. I didn't get a chance to read it, so could you give us a brief little summary?
Okay, so for the one for Kaiju Ramen, see, I was going to do an article about Youngri, and I couldn't remember what my original point was with that article. Maybe I was just going to get ready because its anniversary is coming up pretty soon, a couple of years. because it came out in 67, and then when we get to 2027, I can't remember how many old, 50, 60 years old. Anyway, so I was doing some preliminary research, and I went on YouTube, and almost all the channels on there were really kind of getting kind of rough with that particular movie, kind of beaten out for its special effects and production values and calling a Godzilla ripoff. And I thought, this might make a good article to respond to some of this, because I could tell they're coming from the perspective of, because these are all, younger people in their 20s and 30s. And so they're coming from the perspectives that they got, they grew up watching the more modern films like Godzilla 2014, Pacific Rim with and the host, from South Korea. Much better production values, much better acting, much better everything. And so they're looking back on the past and taking today's expectations and applying it to 1967, which you just can't do, because, the culture was different back then. The technology was different back then. The production times are so much more different. And so I thought, okay, why don't I respond to his critics? And so that's what I did. I did a whole article of responding to to the critics of Young-Guri. Rather than doing a critique of him, I did a critique of his critics.
Ah, very nice, very nice. I have to get on that. I'm behind on my kaiju ramen. I'm a bad friend. I'm sorry, Michael. All right, let's say to other people. Hi to other people in the chat. We got the Punk Otaku Scribe. Hello, hello. We got Autistic Lizard Productions. What's up, Brendan?
Brendan.
Hello. And we got N. Conway, whose wife Amy and daughter Nova are watching. Well, hello, everyone. Amy and Nova, thank you for watching. Thank you, thank you. All right, so back to Godzilla versus Megalon. That's why we're here, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So you're a writer, of course. So I'm interested to know your opinion on this movie's human plot or lack thereof. And I'd also like to know what you would do differently.
I wouldn't do anything differently.
Really?
No, I would leave it exactly as it is, because the characters are all fleshed out. You have one who's inventor, they made very clear, Goro's the inventor. Then they have the race car driver. I couldn't remember what his name is, but again, and then you have the child who's basically he's the audience, he's their representative character who's part of this adventure. And so they clearly defined who their characters were, who the heroes were, what the villains were, what their motives were, and then they ran with it very literally, with cars, on foot, and fist fights and everything. And it's got a great pacing. It's got a lot of great setups. I said they got these multiple locations in there, these exotic locations. Even for Goro, I mean, what they did with his home. Look at what his home looks like. That very interesting cube thing they got set in the hillside. I mean, that's kind of like the tradition of a comic book hero to have a home that's distinctive from everybody else. And so, no, it's a neat movie. It's a wonderful playground to sit in for a good 80 minutes and just escape. So if I could change anything, I would give them, maybe an extra $50 million so they can, tweak their Seatopia sets, so that their ideas, their epic ideas can get, better justice than that low budget matte painting they had. Like, here's Zootopia, one matte painting, there you are, that's all we got. In 3 weeks, $10, this is all we could do, sorry.
They had to work with what they had, but yeah. I was on another stream last night talking about this movie, and one of the things that came up was, maybe we could have a little more world building for Zootopia, like a little more backstory of, like, what they're about, why they're doing what they're doing, and how did they know exactly where to find Goro and Jet Jaguar? Like, what, how, what, huh?
Yeah, I can see that, but then of course, the movie was aimed for kids, and so that's kind of more like details that adults would be more concerned about. And since these were made for those Toho Champion Festivals, the kids, so they just want to know who's good, who's bad, who's going to win, and if it's cool. That's kind of about it.
I mean, that is a good point. I mean, this film was clearly made for a child audience if you ignore the posters in the truck. But that
was a weird anomaly there. I guess I suppose since go back to your previous question, if there's anything you could change, I would probably take that out.
Yeah, that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I don't know how that got past their radar, the folks who were making that, unless that's just the way truck drivers were back then, and they were just trying to be authentic, or else maybe they borrowed an actual truck and then realized that was, because they're making the movie so fast, they realized, oh my gosh, that was back there.
Yeah, because it's not in the VHS version that I grew up with. Like they cut out like they cut out like some of the conversation that they have in the truck because they have that nastiness in frame.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was it wasn't until adulthood where I noticed. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, the only explanation I could think of was that, back in the late 60s, that was when things would get far more promiscuous, in entertainment, it was nudity, and then, of course, then pornography became legal. So that was maybe the environment back then that you had things were so much more explicit. They probably didn't even, to them, that probably seemed kind of lightweight compared to what else was going on in entertainment. That was at the time when a lot of Japanese studios, because they couldn't, the Japanese film industry really crashed when you got in the early 70s, and some of them they switched to making what they call those Roman porn movies or Roman pink movies, whatever. Have you ever heard of those?
I don't think
It's
so.
kind of this softcore porn that they were making, like the Katsugas got really made their name at that. And I suppose if you're working in the Japanese film industry at that time, of course, you're probably rubbing elbows with all these folks, and so you figure, well, my movie doesn't have any nudity in it, so what about the posters? I mean, this is that's a theory. I really don't know how that got, like I said, got past their radar when they knew they were aiming this for children. Why didn't Tomoyuki Tanaka say something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, well, we can put that aside for, for
Yeah.
today. So I mentioned at the top of the show that people either tend to love this movie or hate it. So why do you think there's such a divide between the fans when it comes to this movie? Like, why is it so divisive?
Well, I don't know if it's really divisive today, but back in the 90s, there was, if you look back at the old letter columns from G-Fan, you can see that the big concern back then was Godzilla's respectability. Is Godzilla being treated with respect? And about half the readership were in their 20s, which I was in my 20s back then. So we kind of grew up, a lot of us fans back in the 70s and 60s is basically isolated. We're kind of like the only one who liked this, as far as we knew we were the only ones. And of course, we always listened to guff from like older siblings or from friends for being, quote unquote fake. And so and so of course to us these movies were good, and the original Ishiro Honda film from 1954 was kind of like our proof. Okay, this is this is something you can respect. And then of course Godzilla versus Megalon, you compare those two together. Well, Megalon's like the antithesis of the Honda film. Where as far as there is no respectability, this is just purely kids fodder, which kind of like feeds into the criticisms for Godzilla. So that was kind of like our the skeleton in our fandom closet was Godzilla versus Megalon. It's like, don't look at this one. Look at this one over here, one that Honda did. So I think there was probably some resentment against that movie because it kind of embarrassed the fandom in a way. And that's why a lot of people, why you had that group of people who hated it.
Mm.
And then, of course, you got people on the other hand, on the other side of the aisle, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a bad movie, but it's still fun, so who cares? I don't care what other people think of me for liking these movies. I don't care what they think of these movies. I don't care if Leonard Moulton and all the others are writing 1-star reviews in their review books. I still like this movie regardless. So maybe the kind of like what Priest Divide is your own personal security with your own interest in this particular genre of film. So if you feel embarrassed by, or if you're sensitive about that kind of stuff, then you probably would dislike the movie for because it creates all that insecurity. And whereas you are secure with what you like, then you don't care what other people think. Which case you don't care what people dislike that movie or use as an example to prove that Godzilla movies are childish and fake.
Yeah, that's a very good point with the insecurity. Like, there's a lot of insecurity with everything, really. And I think it all comes down to, different levels of tolerance for silliness.
Yeah, and then there's the other thing too is that back in the 90s, the geek culture hadn't quite reached the level of acceptance as it is today. And so whereas now almost every aspect of geek culture, no matter what it is you like, whether it's the big budget Marvel Universe and Star Wars or the low budget Japanese, films, it's all good, and I don't think you're going to find anyone even in the official movie sector or news media sector anywhere in the US and Western media that will pick on people for liking that sort of thing. And now you got, of course, these huge conventions like Worldcon and San Francisco Con, where where basically every fandom is embraced. And so now I think there's a lot more open enjoyment of Megalon because there's no stigma behind that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing is like you were saying, like with Gogeta and Godzilla versus Megalon, they're completely like polar opposite movies. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the people who are more fans of the serious films like Gogeta, they're looking for something in Godzilla versus Megalon that's just not there, you know?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
Exactly. And it's like sometimes you gotta just take things at face value. Like Godzilla versus Megalon is clearly not meant to be taken seriously. Okay. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just turn off your brain and watch monsters beat each other up for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people take life too seriously, I feel like.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, I don't think there's really that much stigmatism for Godzilla versus Megalon in the Godzilla fandom anymore. I mean, I, I wish I was at G Fest. Well, I was at G Fest, but I wish I was there the day they showed Megalon in the theater, because I said I saw a little clip of the audience reaction to when Godzilla did his famous kick,
Yeah.
and that, of course, just as I predicted, it completely brought the house down. You know?
Yeah, I wanted to be there so bad, but my flight got delayed.
Yeah, well, maybe, like I said, maybe this year because it is the anniversary.
Yes, maybe. I hope so.
But yeah, I see that movie now as sort of among Godzilla fandom circles as the Rocky Horror Picture Show of our, fandom. Because if you were to put that movie on at midnight, we'll all flock to see it. Half of us would probably be in costume, cosplaying. It'd be a big party moment. And everyone just go there to kind of watch this very interesting period piece now of our movie series.
Yeah, I hope they show it at the Pickwick this year. They should, because like you said, it's the 50th anniversary, so they might as well.
I think it's gonna be a toss-up because since they already showed it, maybe they think, well, maybe we ought to kind of shuffle things around and get some other ones in there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not to put that kind of damper things, but now that
yeah,
just be braced. It might not be there.
Okay, I'll mentally prepare myself now. Thank you.
Maybe we'll have to have that as an after party, at the convention, and someone will have to bring their Blu-ray player or something. We can sit and all get together and watch it.
Yeah. You know what? Screw it. I'll bring my Blu-ray. Okay, and then I'll have my own watch party. Okay?
Yeah. You do a live stream while watching it. Just don't show the movie so that way you don't get like a copyright strike. So just kind of like show it on us and while we're watching it. Going,
yeah.
I'll probably brace yourself.
Do something like that. All right. The Punk Otaku Scribe makes a good point here. Rampage 2018 is kind of the same thing. It's literally a big spectacle meant to be loud theme park monster ride. Not everything needs a message. Absolutely agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. People take everything too seriously. Like there's a time and place for, serious, deep message films, and then there's a time for nonsense.
Okay. Yeah, but one thing I also would point out, when you're trying to keep on making more and more movies of the same character, you can't just sit forever on one theme, because I do get the impression, like you said, you talk about some of the older serious fans, they probably will be happy if every single one is going to be about the nuclear theme, and that's it. Just gets sort of stuck there, and the horrors of nuclear war, and the horrors of the bomb, and horrors of World War II, and it's like you got.
And if they keep with that same thing, then they're going to complain about that. Like, oh, it's just the same thing over and over again. Well, then what do you want?
Yeah.
So you can't. Some people can't be pleased, unfortunately. What can you do? So. This is a pretty well-known film. It's been shown on MST3K. It's been played on TV. And for some people, it was the first Godzilla movie they ever saw. Mm-hmm. So would you say that, despite its flaws, would you say that this film had a significant impact on film history, or at least nerd history?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, August Rogoni would probably be a better person to ask on that. So I'm going to base my answer on what he said.
All right.
He's a lot more knowledgeable. And my problem is that when that movie did its theatrical run back in 1976, it never came to my town, so I wasn't able to see it. Now, he was able to see it. And so, I think he might be a couple years older, so he was able to have a better perspective of what was going on back in the 70s. But anyway, so to borrow his answer, sorry, August. Yeah, that movie did make a big splash back then. It sold a lot of tickets, did very, very, very well in the theaters, and so of course, that kind of gave Godzilla a real firm toehold for '70s kids. As far as being a fan of Godzilla, that was their entry movie. And then it came back again in 1977, March 15th on NBC, 8 o'clock at night, Central Time. And that was again where the kids got another dose of Godzilla, easy access. Unfortunately, I missed that opportunity as well, because by that time my mom was a born again Christian, and she took away the dinosaurs because she's afraid I was going to become an atheist, believing in evolution. Godzilla's a dinosaur, that was all tied together. So I didn't get a chance to see Godzilla versus Megalon when it came on TV. So I missed it in the theater because it never came to town. Then I missed it again because of my mother's beliefs. So unfortunately, I missed out all these opportunities to see Megalon. So, but anyway, yeah, no, I think during the '70s was probably very defining for a lot of for young Godzilla or Godzilla film fans, because that was their entry movie, and that was one that everyone had easy access to because the theatrical run and the TV run on NBC. And that probably then got a lot of kids scouring the TV guide when cable became more common back in the late '70s, looking for other Godzilla movies. I mean, they had its own. What was it? I think Fangoria had an article on it. Well, actually, it was Ed Godzuki. Sorry, Ed, I terribly mispronounced his name.
Ed Godachevsky, I think it's.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, he did an article for Fangoria about Godzilla, and then they had the Megalon poster, as sort of the headliner for that article. So yeah, that movie did, and then of course that creates chagrin for fans, because through the '80s and '90s, because then you had the Star Wars came out, Close Encounters came out, Aliens came out, all these big budget science fiction films that really dwarf Godzilla versus Megalon because of their low production values, and so Godzilla fans were embarrassed that everyone is attributing, when they think of Godzilla, they think of that film, and that then created that whole respectability complex that showed up in the '90s. Mm-hmm. So now, did I answer your question? I run on too far. There's a lot of history with that, and I lived it. That's.
No, yeah, that was a good answer. That's some good stuff. Thanks, August. No.
Yes, he's here in spirit with us.
Yes, I don't even know if he knows I exist, but just in case. Hi.
We'll just have a look on his Facebook page to see if he comments or anything about this.
Maybe I'll have him on the show one day. Anyway, so would you show this film to someone who's never seen a Godzilla movie before? Why or why not?
All that's kind of contingent on the person, what kind of movies they like, because that's kind of one nice thing about Godzilla, since it's been around for so long. You got so many different types of Godzillas. You can kind of like pick the right Godzilla for the right person. So you got someone who likes B movies in general, a lot of action. I would show them, Godzilla versus Megalon. If they're a fan, say, of just of the decade 1970s, for some reason that movie to me is like the most 1970s of the 1970s Godzillas. I mean, between the music, the clothes, even that car that they were driving in is like, gosh, that is so 70s. So I would show them that one. Otherwise, if they prefer, again, more of a serious art film, then I would probably go right back to the 1954 film, or maybe Shin Godzilla or something like that.
Yeah, it does depend on the person and the age, actually. Mm-hmm. Like, I would show this to a kid. I showed it to my niece when she was 5 as her first Godzilla movie, and she seemed to enjoy it. Although she kept talking through it and asking questions, because she's one of those people.
Oh gosh. You have to have one in every movie audience to drive everyone nuts. You just shut up and just watch the movie.
Like, oh, why is that happening? Like, just watch it and you'll know. Stop talking.
My mother takes it one step further. She's asking, well, what are they going to do next? Well, why don't you just or how do they get out of that? Well, why don't you just wait and watch?
Like, oh, are they going to be okay? We'll go watch the movie and find out.
Yeah. It's like, just wait 5 minutes. They'll show you. I mean,
look, I hate that they're explaining it right now. Hush. Gotta love it. So let's talk a little bit more about what happens in the film. So Gigan makes his second appearance in this, as we know.
Hmm.
So my question is, would you have preferred if Gigan wasn't in the film, and just to make Megalon even more intimidating on his own?
Oh, I can go either way. I'm not really
Yeah.
particular about that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like he kind of overshadows Megalon a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, Megalon's kind of like a goofball because he's like when you first see him, he looks intimidating. He's coming up out of the surface, and then a few minutes later, you see him like just kind of hopping around the field, and he's all goofy and stuff.
Well, he lost his control. That's why, and they were emphasizing
Yeah, but
that.
even before he lost his control, he was acting a fool. And so he kind of lost some of his intimidation factor. You know what I mean? And I feel like when Gigan showed up, and then I feel like Godzilla fought Gigan more than Megalon. It's called Godzilla versus Megalon. It's like you know what I mean?
I don't know. I just watched that movie about 30 minutes ago, and no, I didn't really get that impression. I mean, my impression was that Megalon was the chief villain,
Mhm.
and Gigan was sort of his little partner. And I mean, I think a good example of that is when Megalon is firing off those little I don't know, little lava balls out of his mouth and surrounding Godzilla and
Oh yeah,
Jet
yeah,
Jaguar
that's
with fire, and then Gigan's kind of off the side doing this, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
get
yeah.
him, you know,
Get him,
kind of
yeah.
doing his little, yeah, doing being his little cheerleader, you know. So that way, it really did he did look like he was a supporting character,
Yeah.
you
No,
know.
yeah, I guess that's true. In that part, he does look like he's more of the side character that he is. And that's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie when they're sort of surrounded by the ring of fire. And then Godzilla grabs on the jet, and then Megalon and Gigan are like, they realize what's happening. And they're like, oh no.
Well, also, well, the first reaction is kind of like, huh? Well, that's not fair, you
Yeah,
know.
that's not fair. Oh.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
there was a
they
lot of
fly out of the ring of fire, and then Godzilla just starts going ham on them. It's great. I love it.
well, there is kind of interesting if you pay close attention because that battle happens over the course of the evening, and that's like the last scene they have at night, just before the dawn. So that was also the same time when Jaguar and Godzilla are kind of the most peril, like the darkest before the dawn
Ah,
moment.
that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. That's good.
I don't know if that was intentional, but it's interesting because that was the moment they were in the most peril, and after that, then you notice in the background the sun was starting to come up, and that's
Yeah.
when they were just really doing the smackdown on the two villains.
Yes, laying the smackdown on them. So that was one of my favorite parts. What are some of your favorite parts of this movie?
Um, anything between the 1 minute mark and the 84-minute mark. Take your pick.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, no, I enjoy the whole thing. I really don't have. I mean, there's moments that stand out. There are moments that stand out that I think that are very superlative, but they're not necessarily favorite. Because because that movie it had the bad reputation throughout the '90s of having the worst special effects for a Godzilla film. One thing I would, because of the flying kick and the moment we got Jet Jaguar kind of that turntable where he's spinning around trying to figure out where when Gigan or whoever was flying around him in circles, and people are like, oh, boo, and you got the stock footage, boo. And it's like, well, if you really look at the whole series, 54, 75, that movie, even though it had some of the worst special effects, had two of the best special effects. The scene when the lake opened up and the water all poured down in it, and the second scene with the dam when Megalon smashed through that dam. I mean, and what's really amazing about that dam scene, because you have some stuff that was, I'm not too sure how much of that was in studio, because you had the life size part with the humans, with the actual human actors and the truck out on the road. If you pay attention to the sunlight there, then the sunlight for Megalon, the lighting's almost perfectly matched, even though they were in different locations and probably filming different days. And I'm not too sure if when they filmed that dance scene, if they filmed it outside or not, but boy, some of that did look like they were filming outdoors because it looked like they had a lot of natural lighting coming down. And so for them to match the lighting, or even if they were just doing studio lights, outdoor lighting, to get all that matched up to look seamless, and it's just amazing. And then you realize, oh, they only had three weeks to film that, and that was just what, a 2-minute scene out of that whole thing, and they got that done. It's like, wow. I mean, that is impressive. And then Megalon probably had one of the best entrances for the 70s too, because you got that little ceremony, you got the speech, and then Antonio turns around and says, "Rise up, Megalon!" You know, he's doing this whole thing, you know, and then finally you have the explosions going on in the rock. Well, first you start with the light shining, that deep red light, and then you got all the explosions, and there he is swinging around his arms and stuff. Here, I'm the new villain, I'm your new monster.
All right. By the way, if anyone watching is really good with making metal music, can someone do a metal remix of Antonio going, "Megalon, Megalon, wake up, Megalon, Megalon"?
I never thought of it. You're right. That would go well with metal.
Because everyone else, every other monster gets like a cool wake up song. Like Mothra gets her song, and then King Caesar gets his song in the next film. I'm like, where's Megalon's song? Come on.
Well, he gets a dance troupe. That's what he has.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's all he gets, but he should get a song too. All right, Kasaibo F29. Hello. You have the UAW Entertainment VHS. Do you have that?
Me? No.
Yeah.
I think I had the Good Times video VHS way 1,000 years ago, back when they had that stuff, but I'm not familiar with UA Entertainment.
Yeah, I think I saw it on it was on a VHS, but it was like a blank VHS. It was recorded off TV, but it didn't have any commercials, oddly enough. So I don't remember what channel it was on, but yeah, the way I saw it, it played right after King Kong 33, which actually has just celebrated its 90th anniversary. Fun times.
Yeah.
Fun fact. But yeah, I don't think I had that particular version. Alrighty, so and the Sparta kick. I think they're referring to the the drop kick. Hello, Godzilla fan freaks. Let's see. So, what are your hopes for this year's Godzilla Day regarding this film? Because last year we got a couple of short films with Gigan's 50th anniversary. So, do you think maybe they could do something for Megalon 50th this year? I know they got something cooking, I feel like. Don't they?
Oh, well, I'd be just happy if they can get another movie in the theater here in the United States. I mean, that was big right there. Of course, now, I don't know how many people out there are aware, but, March 22nd, this month, this year, Godzilla Tokyo SOS is going to make the rounds in U.S. theaters. And
of course,
it's just perfect because we saw the previous film on the last Godzilla Day. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'd be happy if they just do anything, because our theaters have been so empty when it comes to Japanese Godzilla movies for so long. It wasn't like back in the 60s and 70s when they would be a regular basis. Okay, they'll show up in Japan, and then a year or two later they'll be in the United States. And then for the longest time, it was not like that during the Heisei period. We only got one movie out of the Millennium period. So like I said, yeah, if they can get anything in the theater, I'll be happy. But yeah, in theory, you would think in theory though that they would do something for Megalon, since it did something for Smog Monster, did something for Gigan. It would seem strange that they would leave out Megalon.
Yeah, that is weird. Like, Gigan has gotten plenty of love, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I think it's Megalon's turn to shine.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Let's see, what other things can we talk about with this film? So, what would be, not counting Godzilla, what would be your favorite and least favorite monster in this film? Which was going between Megalon, Jet Jaguar, and Gigan. What would be your favorite and least favorite?
Whoa! Again, since I like all four of them, it's hard for me to rank them. I guess if I were to rank them, Gigan, I would think I would probably put in the bottom, since he's just kind of repeat from the last movie, and he was just a sidekick in this one. Of course, he was still kind of a sidekick in the last one too, but I guess he's just everyone's sidekick, But so it's kind of a tie or a toss-up between Jet Jaguar and Megalon. I mean, Megalon had a lot of interesting quirks to him. Like, for instance, when he was just him, when it was just Jaguar and Megalon fighting, when Gigan showed up, right away Megalon backed off from Jet Jaguar and was like, okay, who are you and whose side you're on? And then when Gigan kind of made clear with his hand signal and said, oh, I'm on your side, it's like, oh, okay. And then you see Jet Jaguar's reaction. They got that close of his face. He's like, Oh no!
Oh, no, no, this can't be
Like,
good for me. Okay, Godzilla, where are you?
yeah. So they said they do some like interesting character quirks with him, but then Jet Jaguar kind of had a story arc. He's kind of had a hero's journey because he started out as just as these parts. He didn't have his head on when we first see him, and then they got him together, and then he had very low functionability. That the race car driver taught him how to shake hands, and then when the Cetopian agents show up, well, all he did is bow to him like this, and that's all he did. And then he just let everyone run around and let the Cetopians beat up his creators. And then after he was controlled, managed to break free of the control and after being controlled by the Cetopians. But after that, he kind of took his destiny in his own hands at that point. After he was taken over by the villains, he programmed himself to get large. He figured out where Godzilla was, and then he was kind of like shouldering the burden of fighting for good and justice until Godzilla could show up.
Yeah, Jet Jaguar is awesome. He's one of my favorite characters. Yes. What do you think of Godzilla's design in this movie? What do you think about Godzilla?
Yeah, I didn't really care much for the face. I wouldn't say as bad as the Son of Godzilla face, that particular suit. But yeah, this one is a little too puppyish looking. And then like the mannerisms of the actor really emphasized that face. So when he walked with a little bit of a bounce with his hands like this. Yeah, it's
he's walking, he's like bouncing, like
yes, exactly. I think I think they got the movements down a little bit more perfected with the following two movies. Where it's okay, they want a hero, but they kind of dialed back that childlike behavior of his. So yeah, there's otherwise. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm in the minority when I say I like Megalon Goji. He's so cute and cuddly. I love him. And like that is superhero Godzilla to me. Like, how when people ask you, oh, when you think of Godzilla, what design do you think of? Like for me, when thinking about superhero Godzilla specifically, that's the design I think of. Because he's established as the hero in that movie. So yeah. I like his suit. He's cute. I like him. I don't care what anyone says. Kasaibo says, so nostalgic. Yeah. And yeah, they did tone down the cuteness in the last two films of the Showa era. But yeah, it's cute. I still like him. So any closing thoughts on this film before we wrap it up here?
Oh gosh, our time's up already. Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, well, I know time just flew by.
Yeah, well, my closing thoughts on the film. Well, I'm glad people that movie is much more accepted than it was, back in the 1990s. I remember going to G-Fest and the Bandai figure of Jet Jaguar just was not selling, and the price for him was like $6 or something like that. It's like one of the few figures you can find for under $10. So that gives you a clear indication of what people's opinion of that movie and the characters in that movie. But now things are all kind of flipped around. You got Bandai released a new figure of Jet Jaguar plus the Megalon. Then here in the U.S., that Bandai subsidiary here in the U.S., they came up with their own Jet Jaguar, their own sculpt for him. So yeah, no, I'm really happy to see that movie's accepted, and I think it's a long time in coming because I never quite even understood why back in the 70s in Japan why it didn't get a better reception because that was if you look at the two previous 70s movies, they were like 1,700,000 or whatever it was attendance, and this one dropped down to 980s. Of what happened there? If anything, Godzilla versus Megalon should have been very popular in Japanese theaters back in '73 just because it really fit the tone of what was popular on television, but. It is what it is. It's a long time coming. I hope the people who made that movie, the ones who are still alive, are feeling the love for that film now. Can I feel a little vindication after working pretty hard on that movie? So I'm sure it was a tough shoot when you got just 3 weeks, and it was I guess it was in winter too. And you can even just tell about when they're outside that the afternoon sun is just not that bright on a winter, and you got the heavy leaden clouds up above. It did kind of add a little bit of mood to that movie, even though it was a light film. It's
yeah. I think Hiroyuki Kawase, who played the kid,
Hmm.
He was talking about how cold it was, especially
Yeah.
he was filming that scene with at the beginning with the dolphin machine type thing. Oh, I felt so bad for him when he said that.
Yeah. Can you imagine how cold that water was, and he was in shorts.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that poor kid. Oh no. But yeah, Godzilla versus Megalon is a fantastic film. It will always have a special place in my heart. Objectively speaking, it's not a good film, but I love it anyway.
Hmm.
There's no such thing as a perfect film, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I accept this film for what it is, and it's goofy, and I like goofy because I'm a goofy person.
Mhm.
All right. So before we head out, why don't you remind the lovely people watching where they can find your work?
Okay. Well, you can find my books. Let's see. This is the latest one. Uh, you can find it over on Amazon.com. You can always just Google my name down there. There we are. And you can find me on Facebook again under my name if you want to reach out and touch base with me. That'd be okay. So that's my first one, and here's my second one. I have a hard time
Oh,
centering
there
this
we go.
camera. And unfortunately, I don't have my original. All I have is the proof copy of my original one. Now this one's been my bestseller for reasons I don't know, because I thought my second two were better, but people like to buy this one. So those are the ones that are out there. This one, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, Amazon routinely puts this one on sale. So you can probably get that one for under $10. So and then also I show up on time to time in the pages of GFan or some of John LeMay's work. I show up in some of his books with my essays and articles.
Awesome, awesome. And I know we said we were wrapping it up, but I just notice a question from 1963 Mathetis. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Jet Jaguar almost feels like a stand-in for Ultraman in this movie. The way he changes sizes, fighting style, etc. Does anyone else feel that way?
No, I wouldn't say he was specifically for Ultraman, because there were a lot of characters at that time that were doing that sort of thing. Because you had Spectre Man, Mirror Man, Juneborg Ace. So Jet Jaguar was just kind of like one of many type of heroes like that. I mean, mainly one thing that made him distinct is that he was purely a robot. He didn't have a human alter ego that transformed into what he was. So yeah, no, that was the reflection of the times.
Yep. Yeah, I guess giant robots were all the rage back in those days. Alrighty. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much, Neil, for coming on to my show. It's been a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome. And to you watching at home, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me and my fantastic guest. If you had a good time here today, please leave a comment down below or send your feedback and questions to chillwithkaijukim@gmail.com. Don't forget to hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Chill with Kaiju Kim. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.